What does it mean to be connected to our cosmic neighbors and to understand who we are as starseeds, a galactic convergence across the universe? We're going to find out today with the wonderful Sheila Seppi and the magnificent Barbara Lamb. We're going to find out about their new collaboration and what they've been doing. Stay tuned, coming up.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
G'day. Welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. We are streaming on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM syndicated radio. I actually learned last week that we're across 120 countries and on about 8 platforms, streaming platforms. Hello to people that are in the comments that have been waiting. Penny is excited, and Shirley, great to see you here, and Kristen. And look who is in the house with me today, the wonderful Barbara Lamb and Sheila Seppi. Hello. You're muted, Sheila. You have to unmute. There you go. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting us.
Yes, pleasure to be here.
So these two galactic goddesses, Vladdy says hi from Germany, and Sheila's saying, Penny's saying hello. And these two amazing galactic goddesses have put, Penny's sending love, have put together an incredible book, which we're going to talk about today, and the contents in the book. Let me share a little bit about it. So Sheila Seppi and Barbara Lamb share their new collaboration, which is Cosmic Convergence, your ultimate guide to cosmic consciousness. And I'll tell you, we've got a new audience on the United Public Radio Network, and we're streaming to around 500,000 people. So maybe not everybody knows who I'm talking about. So I'll let you know through their bios. Sheila Seppi is a globally recognized walk-in international speaker, author, and founder of the Conscious Awakening Network. She shares her unique experiences as a walk-in soul, having entered the body of a 38-year-old mother, bringing with her a higher consciousness and spiritual gifts. Sheila's mission is to guide humanity through a spiritual awakening, connecting them with their higher selves and universal consciousness. And Barbara, who has been in this arena for many years and is a wealth of information. Barbara Lamb is a world-renowned hypnotherapist, celebrated for her groundbreaking work with alien abductions, hybrids, and experiences. She has regressed over 2,000 individuals and documented countless experiences of encounters with extraterrestrial beings, shedding light on the reality of extraterrestrial human interaction and the hybrid program. Yesterday, Sheila, I was talking about you, and I was telling somebody that has no idea what a walk-in soul is. You should have seen their face. They were kind of going, that can happen?
That's what I thought too.
That's possible? Yeah. But I don't know, to the person that, because we've had this conversation, well, you live it, and I've been having this conversation for 30 years, but to the person that has never heard of something like that a soul could actually walk into another body when one soul has finished with it. And of all the walk-ins that I have interviewed over the years, when is a soul finished with a body? Usually when the body's quite ill, right? Every single one of them has come into a very sick body and then renovated the body in order to use it. Is that your experience as well?
Absolutely. They come in during illness. Sometimes there's a severe emotional or a physical trauma that's occurring. Sometimes there have been automobile accidents or under surgery. I know several people who have come in under surgery or walked in as a result of a coma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Barbara, in your work, regressing people, have you had many walk-in souls? Uh,
I've had several. I
uh,
wouldn't say, but there've been about 6 that have come to me and done regression work. And fortunately, I happened to know about that phenomenon before the first person came to me for it, from a colleague. One of my past life therapy colleagues uh, shared about a case that she had had, which turned out to be a walk in situation. So, very fortunately, when the person a couple of years later came to me wondering about the incredible change that had happened, being totally mystified, uh, suspected, oh, this might be a walk in situation. And the regression work that we did absolutely validated that, that
yeah.
walk in. And then others came along the way after that.
Yeah. I suspect that there are a lot of people walking around the planet who are walk-in souls that maybe don't even realize it.
Could be.
I have a friend who tried to commit suicide. She ended up in hospital. When she woke up from her sort of unconsciousness, she moved up to Byron Bay, which is like the Sedona sort of place where they all gather, and changed her name, changed her look, changed her life completely. And for many years, she didn't realize she was a walk-in soul because she holds all of the memories, but she, of the old person, Jennifer, which was the old name. But yeah, we were sitting at lunch one day and I'm like, oh my God, you're a walk-in. And she had that sort of epiphany too, but it's not like the old memories disappear. They're still there. You're still a part of that sort of personality, really, aren't you? The older personality, but there's a different.
Yeah, in my
role.
case, I wasn't.
No.
Most people are, but in my case, when I came in, I had very few memories. I had immediate love for my children and my parents, but I only had a few memories associated with each child, like, 4 or 5, that was it. And then
Right.
the same thing with my parents. I had no childhood memories. I had no young adult or very many memories with the husband that I was with at the time, which, was a very dysfunctional marriage. And I left within 3 months because, first off, there was zero resonance. And I think that needed to end anyway. Yeah. So, when you look at walk ins, there are so many different types. And for me, I'm what's called a soul exchange. And when people think of walk ins, that's typically, what they have in mind. And that's where one soul vacates the body and a new soul enters in. And it doesn't happen as a result of a hostile takeover or anything like that. It's on a soul level that an arrangement is made, and it's in a soul birth plan. And
Yeah.
so when the soul arrives, it can arrive at any time. We talked about some of the ways that it arrives, but some people have come in with full memory and they said that at the last minute, the soul of the infant that was going to enter into the body backed out and they came in. So they had to start the imprinting within the cellular structure, the immediately, because when a soul chooses a body, it begins to visit that body many times. So it can begin to imprint the energetic network that's going to be necessary for it to arrive and anchor into the body. And so, like in my case, I came into the body of a 38-year-old woman. And fortunately, there was an Arcturian framework. And because I am part of a collective, and part of that collective is Arcturian, I was able to enter in without frying the biology of this body. But in a lot of cases, people will come in from their own oversoul. And so if you imagine the fist being the oversoul, this is a multidimensional lifetime experience. It comes in by way of what's called the Shantias Khan, where all of the higher self stream, everything that's needed for the emotional and spiritual bodies is located there, as well as the higher self stream that connects to the body that ends up becoming the soul or the personality of this lifetime. But they can come from this, but in my case, I did not. I came from a totally different one that still had a resonance factor because of the galactic framework.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah,
I know, it's
because
fascinating.
remember, yeah, the
Joe,
spiritual bodies, the chakras, and the meridians have to be changed out.
yeah. I had Joe Montaldo on the show last week, and we were talking about we were talking about that movie. What's it called? Something Carbon, Altered Carbon, and the concept. My daughter asked me to watch it. It's a Netflix series, and it's so violent. I didn't like it, but the concept is that the people understand they're not the body; they're the consciousness, and they can upgrade the physical body anytime they want to. They call it they're like wearing a sleeve. It's like they call their body the sleeve. And so they jump out of one body, that body dies, and jump into another body and continue living a life, but have an upgraded body. So, yeah, so mainstream media is playing around with these concepts that are true, but, through fictional stuff, but it's actually all possible. Anything is possible in an infinite universe, right? Infinite possibility. But you ladies have collaborated with a magnificent book called Cosmic Convergence, a journey of walk-ins, starseeds, and hybrids. And I think this is fantastic because to a mainstream audience, it's great to find out, what's going on with the upgrade of the planet. Obviously, Sheila, you are here because we're going through an almighty shift on Earth. And Barbara, well, we're all here really, and probably everyone listening.
Yes.
But instead of being born into a baby body, you couldn't wait. I'll just take on a 38-year-old's body because stuff needs to happen, work needs to happen, and information needs to get out there. And this is all part of the radio show, the networks. It's all part of getting the information out there. So I want to tell you a little bit about the book. The book asks us to stand upon the threshold of a new era of human consciousness and embark on an extraordinary odyssey into the realms of the walk-ins, starseeds, and hybrids. This groundbreaking book reimagines the complexities of the human experience and navigates where certainty and cosmic merge. It confronts profound questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and our place in the cosmos. Cosmic Convergence invites you to expand your horizons and question your assumptions. I love that. Question everything. For in this presence of walk-in, starseeds, and hybrids, we may unlock the mysteries of the universe and find the seeds of our awakening. What does it mean to be human in a universe teeming with life and intelligence? How do we reconcile the limitations of our physical experience, human experience, with the boundless potential of our spiritual nature? The authors, obviously Sheila and Barbara, answer these questions and more in the book. So tell me, what made you put this book together? Who wants to answer that? Either of you.
Sheila should answer that because she initiated it.
Fabulous.
Okay, so as part of my collective, I always go under their directives, and they were ready to write this, and they wanted people to know I had expanded my knowledge and awareness about other walk-ins, starseeds, hybrids, etc. So I wanted to share that, but also I really wanted people to understand the multidimensionality of the universe. And so the first portion of the book is dedicated to understanding the differences between dimensions and densities and harmonic universes, parallel universes, the holographic body, the framework that we're even made up to that connects out in with the galactic structure of the universe. And so all of these things I thought was necessary in order for people to be able to understand how such a thing as becoming a walk-in would be possible. We talk a lot, obviously, about walk-ins, and behind the section of walk-ins, then there is different regression therapies that Barbara has contributed to the book. And as we were writing this, and, I would share sections with Barbara, we would massage everything because we really felt like it was so important for people to really be able to sink their teeth into something to understand that they are multidimensional beings and that they are part of a much larger landscape, not just what we've been told that we are, because we are these magnificent beings, these co-creators of our own reality, because we hold that divine, source spark within us.
Yeah, amazing. And Barbara, what was your experience being involved in the book?
Well, it was very exciting for me. I was so pleased that Sheila asked me to be part of that whole thing. And I've had so many, many cases come to me for regression work over the years. And since 1991, most of the people who have come to me for regression work have been people who have had many experiences with extraterrestrial beings, and some of them have had experiences with more spiritual, other dimensional beings. And then in the mix, there were a few walk-ins over the years who came to me, and many people actually who are starseeds, and quite a number of people who are hybrids. So when Sheila invited me to participate in the book, it was really exciting for me to be able to share some of what I knew from working with actual people who were or starseeds or hybrids. And I've always felt since the beginning of doing this kind of work that it would be wonderful for more and more people in the world to know about the extraterrestrial visitors, first and foremost, and then to know about these other people who are here with us, the walk-ins, the starseeds, and the hybrids. So I thought, oh, good, this is an opportunity to get this special information out to more people. And I very admire Sheila and who she is and all the wonderful work that she does. So it was just a total pleasure to collaborate with her.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I fanboy Barbara all the time. So it's like, yay, I'm so happy, Barbara. I'm going to get to collaborate more with Barbara. So it was so exciting. And it was fun. It's still exciting and fun.
I was telling Sheila and Barbara that we had a few fans on Facebook like, whoa, what a combo. This is going to be a great show. People saying on Facebook. Sorry, Barbara, what were you going to say?
That's really nice. It's been a happy collaboration, I must say, because I keep learning from Sheila, certainly learned from what she wrote in the book. And every time we do an interview, and we've done many now together, I learn another aspect about all of this. It just keeps coming. It's really wonderful.
Yeah. Well, Barbara's written many books. I'm going to show a couple of them now. A few of them are collaborations. E.T. Friends in Space, that's a collaboration, isn't it, with Mary Edwards?
Yes, the illustrator of this. Right, and that is, I'm very happy with that book because it's for children, and so many children have encounters with extraterrestrial beings and don't have anybody to talk to about it, and their parents usually don't believe them. So this book is for validating children's experiences to children, and also it validates it to the parents or anybody reading the book to the children.
Yeah. And Meet the Hybrids.
Oh, yes. Well, Miguel Mendonça is my co-author on that. And we interviewed 8 hybrid people who we had already determined as hybrids, and interviewed them for many hours each, a few times each. And so really got a very good sense of who they are, what their abilities are, what their perspective is, what their attitudes are, how they became hybrids. And they are wonderful, wonderful people living amongst us, and probably worldwide, but our particular hybrids came from America and from England, but there no doubt are more in other countries as well. So they are here to really help to serve humanity, to raise the consciousness of humanity. And they have lots of visits with their extraterrestrial families who gave them their genetics. And
Yeah.
so that's a wonderful aspect of people here to help. There are many people here helping these days, helping humanity. And definitely the walk-ins are here totally for helping humanity, raising perspective, raising consciousness. The starseeds are here, born here, as we all are. And they are here definitely to serve and to help. They may not realize it as they're growing up, even though they are serving even as children with the special skills that they have. And it's a wonderful thing when they come to realize that, oh yeah, they really have come here for a purpose, and there are extraterrestrial beings, very benevolent beings, who are behind them, sort of coaching them, helping them to help humanity. And then with the hybrids too, they are born here, having been already given extraterrestrial genetics, sometimes of 4 or 5 different types, species of extraterrestrials. And yet they are born here, and they look and act perfectly human. So they're part of our civilization. And yet, with all of the psychic and paranormal skills that they have and perspective from the extraterrestrial beings who keep visiting them and giving their perspective. Anyway, it's wonderful that we in the world have these people with us to help. And I feel particularly in these days right now, with so many negative things coming up under the woodwork, so to speak, so many atrocious things that have been going on, and all of the controversies about that, and political controversies, and war raging here and there, and nuclear war being threatened every moment, it seems. So, in other words, there's so much negativity and so much suffering, so many millions of people going on in the world. So, in balance, it's wonderful that we do have these special people who are here definitely for the purpose of helping humanity and trying to raise the consciousness overall so that we can live much more wonderful, peaceful lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important. And I just want to go through a couple of books. If you think that you're a walk-in, or maybe you might know some walk-ins, you want to know more about it, Sheila's also got a book called Walk-ins, The Cosmology of the Soul. And it's very extensive, talks about all the different types. And, we've just hit the surface on what it is to be a walk-in soul. And also, Barbara, you've got a couple more books, Alien Experience, 25 Cases of Close Encounters Never Before Revealed. And you also collaborated with Nadine. How do you say her last name?
Lalich.
Beautiful. And crop circles. Don't you love a crop circle? You've got a book on crop circles revealed. So there's plenty to read out there if people want to find out more about this subject. But I've just come back, as I said to you, from the country with a group of conscious people who gather in the country. They do camping and they get together and do workshops and meditation and connect to the earth. And it's a very different level of consciousness awakening than this conversation and many of the conversations I had over the weekend. I was trying to explain why this conversation is important in our spiritual awakening, Why do you ladies think that the knowing about walk-ins and hybrids and our multidimensional aspects is important in our spiritual awakening? Who wants to take that one?
Well, go ahead, Barbara.
I think it's very important that people begin to realize that we are really in a multi-dimensional universe. We're all very involved, of course, in our physical lives and all that is involved with that. But it really helps us to expand our awareness that we're not only physical, but we ourselves and the whole universe is multi-dimensional. There's so much more to us and to life in the universe than we have realized. At least that's certainly true for me, having grown up as a regular person here in the physical universe, physical planet. But it's wonderful to expand our awareness that there is so much more. For instance, even to us as human beings, there is so much more. We are multidimensional, even if we don't know that, because we're in physical life, but we are multidimensional. We came from another dimension originally as spiritual realm from and then ongoing physical life here and there, but definitely ongoing spiritual life. We are spiritual essence. And actually, so is the whole universe, the whole cosmos. And we tend, of course, from being in physical life, we tend to think of it as a physical universe, which it is. That's one aspect of it, but it's also a multi-dimensional universe. So I think that it is very helpful to us to broaden beyond the physical in our experience and in our awareness, to realize that we are so much more. For instance, a very simplistic way of saying it is that we are spiritual souls, ongoing forever and ever, and here and there from that spirit realm, we choose to have an incarnation. What most of us are aware of as the incarnations that we have right here on Earth as human beings, but sometimes the soul even chooses to incarnate on another planet as another intelligent life form. And that's why it has come out in so much of my regression work that many people have discovered that they have had previous lifetimes as extraterrestrials. And at first, that may be kind of a surprising, shocking idea to a person. And yet, as they do more regression work and get more details of the types of beings that they were, it all makes sense. It makes sense about so many things that they have wondered about or have been aware about this life. And like, where did that idea come from? Well, maybe it was a bleed through from one of their extraterrestrial lives. And exactly. The whole premise with this is that we are all one. We human beings are one with all life, including all the species of extraterrestrial life. And all of the hybrids, Miguel Mendoza and I interviewed for the book Meet the Hybrids, every single one of them independently of each other, with this phrase that we are all one. And they're terrestrial people who they have contact with and have the genetics of. They have always emphasized this too, and want humans to know this. We're not just one type of intelligent species in the universe, and there are many, 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 many other types elsewhere in
It's
the.
it,
And yet,
it's
even though there are millions of miles of distance between us and the planets, we are still one.
all one. Yeah, it's funny you say we're not one type of intelligent species in the universe. I think many of the cosmic neighbors look at humanity. They don't see us as very intelligent at all. We're killing each other. We're hating each other. We're arguing with each other. We're judging each other. We're completely blind to who we are as souls. Most of us, not many, not everybody, but I don't know if they'd see us as so intelligent. We think we're so intelligent, and compared to their level of consciousness, we're just getting started, aren't we, Barbara and Sheila?
Absolutely.
We're just revving up.
I enjoy, in some of my work, I enjoy very from the perspective of some of these other beings, and their viewpoint of on Earth.
Yeah.
How tolerant, in many ways, they must be of us, with all these what I call nudgy-gudgy negative things going on in the Earth. And they must just shake their heads and say, oh, my goodness, how pathetic. We've got to do something to help them come along.
I know. I think about that often, Barbara. Well, every day, actually.
Me
how
too.
they see us. I think that I always say that we're like the best sitcom in the universe. They're sitting back eating popcorn. What are those silly humans doing today? Have they come up for another way to kill each other?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And why those people down there on Earth doing something about this to stop all this?
I know, right? Yeah. Well, we are, and we're writing books, and we're
Yes.
having radio programs and networks, and we're putting on conferences. We're doing our best to get the message out there, to share wisdom and knowledge. And Sheila, what did you want to say about that question I asked before? I can't even remember what question it was.
About multidimensionality. Okay. Well, I think it's important. Yeah. Sorry. I think it's important that we understand that we're multidimensionality, because first off, it's going to open the door to much more profound and expansive understanding of who we really are, why we're here, how we're connected to the cosmos. Because as people begin to wake up, and I had my awakening at the same time that I became a walk-in, as these things start to happen, it's really good that we understand a little bit more about this new expanded awareness of self that we have, because we start looking beyond the physical body and the physical limits, and we really start accessing our inner potential. And if we don't understand where that comes from, if we don't understand, oh, yeah, I may be a star being, if we don't understand those things, it's really difficult for us to be able to anchor that new knowledge. And the other thing is, it allows us really to reconnect with source and that universal oneness, just like Barbara was talking about, because we start this rapid spiritual growth. Well, if we're growing spiritually, what is it that we're growing into? Or what are we growing out of? And if we don't understand where we're going, chances of us staying where we are is pretty strong. And it also allows us to step into like unity consciousness, because, a lot of people, we talk about, being one, and we all have a grasp. Well, but what does that really mean? When we understand that multidimensionality weaves this, tapestry that allows us to see that interconnectedness of all of life, because then we begin dissolving the illusion of separation, and we can start fostering love and unity. And as we dissolve those limitations that we've once held, it's really important that we know and understand what it is we're dissolving, and again, what we're stepping into, because we also start to step into our life's purpose and our soul evolution. And if we can understand that we all began with source, and that what we call multidimensionality is just a progression of how the soul, insends and locks into a form, whether it's a human form, an extraterrestrial form, an angelic being, a dimensional being, whatever it is, that helps us to better understand who we are and what we're truly about. Because, I know for me coming in, when I got that jolt of energy pulsating through my cells, systematically I started remembering things I didn't even believe in. And I
Yeah.
started to heal and to transform in ways that I didn't understand. I
Yeah.
didn't understand that self-healing was possible because
Yep.
I was going to Western medicine popping pills because of all the various illnesses that I had. But once I began to ascend, once I began to anchor in, once I began to understand who I truly was as a multidimensional being, it's like I could take a deep breath. And
Yeah.
right now, with all the trauma going on to the planet, if we really understand that we're multidimensional beings, we also understand that all of these things are part of our creation. Well, why would we create that? For our growth, for the soul's growth. So when you look at things from the soul's perspective, all the insanity that's going on down here is just that polarity of light and dark. And when
Yeah.
we can understand that, then we can rise above it. Then we can start to heal those ancestral traumas. We can start to release and let go. We can really start to step into that which we already are, but we've just forgotten.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. There's quite a few questions which I'll get to, but I wanted to talk about a young man that I met over the weekend. He was the son of a friend of mine, 16 years old, and she's like, "Come on, Amos, you've got to go and speak to Cara, and she'll answer all your questions." And so he's full of questions, and like, "What's your podcast about?" And I asked him a question, "What planet are you from?" And he looked at me like, "What?" And it sort of blew his mind, like, "What does that mean?" And I said, "If you think that you've explored other planets and other points of consciousness and other forms of intelligence, what one do you think that would be?" And it got him thinking, because he's into like astral travel and mycelium mushrooms and deliberate creation. Like, he's just asking all the questions. And I'm sure that someone at 16, because that teenage year, those teenage years are when you really want to fit in, right? You really want to fit in. You want to talk about girls and, partying and drugs and whatever people talk about when they're 16. But to talk about, astral traveling and leaving the body and all that sort of stuff is not your common conversation.
Right.
I said to him, "Can you talk about this with your friends?" And he said, "Oh, I've got one or two friends, but I hate school and most of the kids in school are stupid."
Yeah. Yeah. Spoken like a true starseed.
Spoken like a true starseed. So
Yeah.
what I want to ask you is, I'll get to, Susan's got a great question and Vladdy had a question before. What I want to ask you is that once people do know that they're a starseed, so I'm thinking of this 16-year-old kid. So now I've identified my multidimension. I've come from Arcturus or the Pleiades, or I've spent time on multiple planets, and then I'm a highly evolved being here. Like, what do you do with that information? Because it's not like you can put it on your resume and get a job. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you're going to leave university and say, "Okay, now I've identified as a starseed. What job can I get to, like, what is my career going to be?" What do you want to say to people who now know who they are? What are they going to do with that information?
Well,
Well,
go ahead, Barbara.
sorry. I think that they can really put their minds in meditation to what are they uniquely here to serve.
Yeah.
Not what kind of job or career can I have, but what is my main reason for being here in terms of service to my fellow men. And many of them are already doing their service, even as kids. They're healing people. when somebody is having a physical problem, or they're being a good listening ear, they're being a loving, caring person, they're doing helpful things, uh, they're coming out with wisdom here and there in their daily lives with the people they know. So they may already be doing some of their service, but many people find that in meditation, uh, asking asking their guides uh, to help them to know contribution they can particularly make, and many of them get good guidance that way. Many of them also do out and out channeling a higher, wiser source, and that's a very good way too of finding out what they are here to do.
That was his
Tuning in various ways, and taking it seriously help. And they tend to, these starseeds, okay, why am I really here? Or what can I do?
Exactly.
Whatever abilities I have, what can I do to be of help here?
Right. That's exactly the question he had. Like, and he had been listening to a lot of more personal growth coaches, and there was a consensus that you can't ever really find your purpose. I remember when I was young too, that was an idea that people like, you can't ever really find your purpose and why you're here on the planet. And I said, yes, you can. Just ask yourself, what part of life do you think about? Like, what interests you? When you look out into humanity, what do you think needs fixing? But Sheila, what do you want to say to these people who now identify as hybrids and starseeds and walk-ins? What do they do with that information?
Well, I think honestly, I agree with you that people can find out what their purpose is by just looking at what they're passionate about. Okay. So that's one thing, but I look at that kind of as that human element. I think everyone's purpose is to help anchor in the higher light codes that are on the galactic that can come in now, because I'm going to tell you because I was, as part of the collective, we still do work on the crystalline grid and send in the light codes and repair and work with the consciousness of humanity. But there's only so much that you can do above because of, the directives. And when you're here, you can actually be boots on the ground and interact and interface with people, on a daily basis. But, it also gives people that opportunity to reconnect with their cosmic family, whether that's in dream time, meditations, channeling, light code, visualizations, any of those types of things can help them. But really grounding that galactic energy, because a lot of star seeds feel like they're out of place. They feel like they're disconnected. Or I had one guy, he said, when I was 5 years old, I went to my parents and said, it's okay, you can tell me, I know I'm adopted. They're like, no, you're not adopted, we really wanted you. And he's like, well, then why do I feel this way? I feel like somebody's just dropped me off here. And he had a homesickness. So for people to understand that they're a starseed, I think it's not so much a label as it allows people to understand why they may be feeling a lot of the things, and then ground that connection, gives them that opportunity to open up to the higher dimensional frequencies within the Earth's energies, and they can stabilize their physical and energetic systems. And as they do that, it'll allow them to step into their own gifts and align with their own multidimensional self.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just like Barbara said too, people think that they can't find their purpose. Of course, having a hypnotherapy session and speaking to your higher self or your galactic aspects of your oversoul, you've got all the answers right there, right, Barbara? I mean, you want to what am I doing here on Earth? You can find out either in meditation or going to a hypnotherapist.
Right. And more people are coming to me. I'd say for the past 2 or 3 years, more and more people have been coming in to me to do work with regression to find out what their soul's purpose is.
Right.
I think that is exciting and wonderful that so many more people are wondering that about themselves.
Yeah.
We all get very, very embroiled in our physical lives here on Earth. And it's easy to overlook the fact that we might be here for a particular purpose that our soul has decided for us. And I'm very, very pleased that more and more people are wondering about that and really wanting to find out why they are really here and what is the most important thing that they are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that so many more people are awakening to that and wanting to get with their purpose.
Yeah. This young man, when I was talking to him, I was saying, oh God, I've lost my train of thought now. I've got a million questions going through my head. Now, what was I saying to him? I don't know. Anyway, I'll get back to it. But with the book, so the book is specifically Cosmic Convergence is addressing these questions, right?
Yes.
And you've got some cases in the book of regression sessions. Do you want to share one or two of those?
Well, we were just talking about starseeds, so I'll pick there. One of the cases was a woman, kind of in her middle age years, and she definitely was one of those people wondering, why is she really here? Well, we kind of did a review in talking and also in the regression, and put together the fact that she had, as a very young child, had her own disability. And it was a hearing disability in her case. And of course, that was very problematical with her going to school and not being able to hear the teacher or hear the other children. So there were various medical procedures that were done for her, and she gradually was able to hear. But in the meantime, even in preschool, she was very empathetic to anybody else who might have a disability. She had a couple of people in her preschool class who had different kinds of disabilities, each one of them, but she had great appreciation for what they must be going through, a tremendous amount of empathy, and treated them very, very kindly, even tried to help them with some healing abilities, which she was discovering as a young child. And so that was wonderful. And all through her growing up years, she realized that she had a special appreciation and empathy for anybody who was having any kind of difficulty. That was a feature that just went right along with her. And make a long story short now, she has been teaching autistic children. And because of her empathy and her being able to tune in to other kinds of communication that the autistic children are trying to do, she has been very, very helpful in working with them. And it's her service has been broader than that as well. She has been doing podcasts to interview people and also to speak herself from a more spiritual point of view. And the people that she interviews have a much greater consciousness, more enlightened consciousness than most humans do. So she's been trying to serve in those ways and is always looking for ways to serve even more effectively. So that clarification about who she is and what her work is and what it still can be all came out in a couple of regression sessions.
Yeah.
And then I have done some regression work with some of them, and
The hybrids, was that?
the
The
hybrid,
hybrid, the hybrids.
and they have been able to find out how they became hybridized, and who the beings are, and what their connection with the beings are, the beings who gave them their genetics, and get more clarity about the service in various ways that they are here to do. So I could give examples of that, an example of that, if you would like.
Yeah,
Of what,
sure.
yeah. Well, one of them realized that they all, say it this way, they all realize from a very, very young age that they feel like they are very different than everybody else and different from their family. And they all feel that their family is somewhere out there in space. And they often are out there looking up at the sky and talking to it and saying, why don't you come to me? Why have you let me be alone here? Now, they're not really alone because they have a family, but they don't feel like it's their real family. The real family is out there in space. And so they invite their real family, the extraterrestrials, to come to them. And indeed, from a very young age, they do have visits from their extraterrestrial family, and are coached and guided by those extraterrestrials. And they come to know eventually that they do have the genetics from those various beings. And so they are partly them. And that's why they feel like their real family here, physical family, is not their real family, but that somehow the other ones are. So in the regression, a lot of details come out about that, about their connection with their particular beings, and their reason for being here, and why they are the way they are, why they are different than other human beings. And yet, having been born here of a physical mother and a physical father, with the added genetics from extraterrestrials, which are added usually at the point of conception or during life in the mother's womb. There's one hybrid I know who was actually hybridized, given extraterrestrial genetics in the form of an injection at age 6. But all of the other ones had it, the hybridization happening earlier. So anyway, this one person that's different than the rest of the hybrids, she actually was formed by humans, sort of military people in a
Oh, my love.
operation here on Earth. They had genetics from about 6 different kinds of extraterrestrials from their bodies that had been captured when their spacecraft had crashed here on Earth. There were many more crashes than most people are aware of all over the
Yes.
but our military here in the US had created a particular department where they had some of these bodies. They had the DNA from the bodies, and they combined a father's sperm and the mother's eggs, and combined them, creating an embryo to which they added the extraterrestrial genetics. And then that embryo, having been created that way, was placed in the body of the mother, in the womb of the mother, and gestated the regular 9 months. And then that fetus baby was born the way that we birth our babies,
Yeah.
and particular hybrid. So she grew up with all the amazing psychic and paranormal abilities, healing abilities, and so forth, and very wondering higher consciousness. And it wasn't until she was age 35 that her father took her aside because he was getting ready to finish his life, told her that she had come to being because they had done this work of adding the extraterrestrial genetics. Now, she was pleased actually to find out that she was a hybrid because she had always felt so different and always had remarkable abilities and had lots of contact with those extraterrestrial beings whose genetics she had in her. And it was all always a mystery, why am I like this? And so she was relieved to find out that she was a hybrid. But what she didn't like was that her father said that she did it as an experiment.
Oh, she didn't like that she was an experiment.
Right.
Yeah.
Very
Oh,
happy.
well, I think we're all experiments, actually.
I think we are.
I think Earth is an experiment. I just need to do a station ID break. Fascinating information. Thanks so much, Sheila and Seppi. Sheila and Barbara and Sheila. You're listening to Karen Swain, Accentuating the Positive, Awakening Consciousness on the UFO, United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM. Syndicated radio across 120 countries, apparently, and 8 different streaming platforms. We're talking today about cosmic convergence with Barbara Lamb and Sheila Seppi. And what does it mean to be a hybrid or a walk-in or a starseed or somebody who knows that they're here to make a difference and they don't feel like they really fit in to the default setting of the third dimensional mainstream 3D mind or collective consciousness? How do they help people? How do they shift that consciousness out of a fear-based consciousness into a more unified consciousness? Susan has a great question that she asked ages ago, actually, that says, is there a difference between a walk-in and someone who has a sudden shift of consciousness that brings in a new unifying self-awareness and major chunks of their higher self, she says. So, yeah, maybe Sheila, you want to answer that. Is there a difference between a spiritual awakening and a walk-in experience?
Yes, there's a big difference because in a spiritual awakening, a lot of times that will come from exposure that you've had. It'll come from books. Maybe you've been watching podcasts, but typically it's from an influence outside yourself that you've been participating in. And when you have a walk-in experience, even though there are many types, a walk-in is an actual soul exchange or it's an augmentation of the soul. And a lot of times, because people feel so differently, they'll say, oh, I must be a walk-in because this has changed or that has changed. But a lot of times those changes come about because you now are tapped into a higher vibrational frequency. Maybe your diet starts to clean up. Maybe you're interested in more metaphysical or esoteric teachings. A lot of these things happen with walk-ins as well. But in addition to like the soul exchange, or some people call that a soul transfer, you have the infusions. And I see this happening with both walk-ins and with the general population, because with the soul infusion, that is an integration of the higher self and oversoul aspects. Now, one of the things that my collective has shared with me is that the number of walk-ins coming in now have been reduced because of the number of starseeds who are waking up. However, one of the things that happens with the new walk-ins that are coming in, they're already awake and they understand. So when they come in, they've already had this epiphany, this soul awakening, and they just come in bringing all of that knowledge. Whereas somebody like me, I had to integrate, I had to understand, and then I had to act upon that knowledge. Well, with a soul infusion, you're getting that direct integration of the higher self or the oversoul aspects. And if part of that soul remains, then that's a walk-in scenario. But
Uh-huh.
if the entire soul remains and you integrate with the higher self, that's also a soul infusion, but it is more of a soul infusion of the current soul. It's the augmentation. Then you've got soul mergers, and they represent these soul infusions, but they differ in that the natal soul remains firmly intact. And
Uh-huh.
another entire aspect of the oversoul or the entire knowledge of the Shantias Khan comes in and locks in and fuses with that natal soul. You got the jumpers, people talk about the pop-ins and pop-outs, and a jumper is a soul that will come in for a short period of time. They will imprint heavily on the body, and then they're out for their next experience. But when that happens, the person is like, whoa, what just happened to me? A lot of times that will evoke a spiritual awakening. And
Uh-huh.
you've got like the soul overlays, where the original soul or the natal soul stays. Another soul aspect comes in and it covers it, kind of like a neoprene suit. And that can either be permanent or temporary. But the type that I want to talk about next, is called a soul step down or the step in. So, unlike the conventional soul exchange, which I am one soul out and another soul in, and this new soul will permanently occupy the body. Well, at least to my understanding, it will permanently occupy this body. When you have a step down, you'll have a soul. It comes in, it integrates, it leaves, and another soul comes in and it integrates. And then maybe two souls come in. People that have explained this to me have felt within themselves that they're having like a psychotic episode, because it's like all of a sudden, and the personality stays intact. And they're like, all of a sudden, I've got this happening, and then this soul leaves, and this new information source comes in, and, their head's spinning around all the time. But another real interesting kind is what's called a soul projection. So, like, you would have an off planet extraterrestrial that's projecting the entirety of their beingness into a human form. And then, of course, there's the soul braids, where you may have
Mm.
two or more souls inside the body, but they kind of braid themselves. They retain their own identity. And at any time, one can come forward, but they're very, very symbiotic in the way that they work. And then there's like, the soul layering, where you have multiple aspects that come in with the natal soul. And over time, because of being new light codes they're exposed to, or higher dimensional frequencies that come in, they begin to shift. And like one personality will step forward and another one subsides, and another personality will step forward. And yet they all operate with one voice and they're all aware. Um, there are many people who have this scenario that are walk-ins, and that can be very confusing, because it's like, oh, I was in the grocery store and this personality came out, and all it wanted to do was to hold. One lady said all that this being wanted to do was to touch blue glass. That's it. And it only came forward during that time. She had others that really worked with her on like universal knowledge. And she had others that would bring things like gifts of the 3D in, like sewing or being able to cook extraordinary meals. So all of these various souls can come in, but there are sudden shifts in the personality. And I think that is why people will say a spiritual awakening and a walk-in look very, very similar.
Similar, yeah. And Vladdy asked ages ago, I don't know if he's still awake because he's in Germany, does the contract of a walk-in soul, is it made during the life planning of the donor soul, or can it happen spontaneously during the lifetime of the donor soul?
Yeah, I think it happens both. And what I was told by my collective, that when the soul of this body cried out to be released, the collective decided I would be the aspect to come in. Now, on the 3D level, that was instantaneously, but on the soul level, because we're looking at non-linear time,
Time.
there was a lot that had to take place. And
Right.
it was almost like for us here, time would have slowed.
Yeah.
But there, it was just continuing, and they were getting so much information done, writing it in soul plans, rewriting, doing that kind of thing. So I have to say yes to both of your questions, but
Both
the
is possible.
what is instantaneous, in like in my case, was still being written into a plan.
Exactly, because we're not working in time. Yeah,
Correct.
beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I remember what I was going to ask before when I was talking to this young man about, purpose and what we're here to do. Because I think that often when you identify, now you've found your new identity. Okay, now I've had a spiritual epiphany and awakening. I'm a starseed, I'm a hybrid, I'm a walk-in, whatever. What am I going to do with my life? I don't think there's any one thing, right? I was telling this young man, maybe you're here to explore creativity, and you might use paint to explore it, or you might be a
Right.
sculptor, or you might be an actor or a writer. I mean, and you don't have to just stick to one thing. You can explore all of them. I know Barbara's sort of been a healer, and it evolved into a hypnotherapist, and then it evolved into the ET conversation, and it evolved into writing books and doing seminars and conferences. And so it wasn't one thing. And Sheila's the same. You started as healing, hands-on healing, and then doing podcast shows, and now you've got a conscious awakening network. It can evolve, and it can encompass many things. There isn't just one thing that we're here to do. We're here to serve, and that can mean anything, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it, right, ladies?
Right. Yeah, well, for me, I came in to be a way shower, period, end of story. And that's what my whole life is about. But the way it shows up shifts and changes over time. Just like you said, I started out being a healer, and because I thought I was a way shower, the only reason that I became a healer to begin with is my collective said people cannot truly drop into the essence of who they are at a soul level when they're in pain. And I was
Right.
like, oh, okay. So then I started learning all these healing modalities. And then the next thing they kept telling me, the go bigger story, go bigger, go bigger. And it went from there to bringing in more practitioners, to then bringing in events, to then hosting huge events, to then writing the book, to hosting larger events, to bringing groups of people together, on and on and on, until I got to where I am now. And tomorrow it may shift and change again.
Yeah. Somebody asked here, what is soul retrieval? Leah says, what is soul retrieval? Do you want to
Well, that's
go for
very
that one?
different. It can show up kind of as a walk-in, but a soul retrieval is when you have fragmented aspects of the soul, and that is due to the 3D life trauma that we experience. Because when we come in perfect and divine. We may carry wounding or genetic lineages that we have agreed to clear and that kind of thing. But that soul loss begins from the time we're born until the time we drop our robe and move on to our next adventure. And so trauma is the number one reason that occurs. So when that happens, an aspect will go into a different dimensional space. And when the soul is retrieved, you'll have a practitioner that goes in. And with soul retrieval, I find more times than not, either the soul is 100% ready, and it's like I've just been waiting on somebody to come and get me. Oh my God, I've been stuck here forever. I didn't think anybody's ever come. Or you have to coax them. It's okay. Life has shifted and changed. You now are in an adult form. And there has to be a lot of inner child work that's done. And then you bring in that soul aspect, you breathe it in through the top of the head, you anchor it in through the heart, and then it connects in with the larger soul.
Yeah. Oh, Leah says, thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Now I understand. Beautiful. She also says, I've heard of beings that are called, I've never heard of this. I don't know how, filth that assist us, sylph beings. Have you ever heard of Barbara or Sheila, sylph beings? SILTH.
I mean, I've heard of sylph beings. I don't know anything about them. I have heard of sylph beings.
Yeah.
No, not
No regressions.
Or your regressions. Now, what have we got left? We've got about 15 minutes left. Where do we want to go with the book? So we've been talking about how it helps people assist. What were the questions here? What does it mean to be human in a universe teeming with life and intelligence? How do we reconcile the limitations of our physical existence with the boundless potential of our spiritual nature? These are good questions. Who wants to have a stab at that one? How do we, because as I said before, most of the universe looks at us and doesn't see us as intelligent life particularly. So now that we're connecting to a universe that is teeming with ultra intelligent life, where do we fit into that? How do we interact with that? How does it all work when disclosure is a real thing across the collective consciousness?
I'm happy to answer, Barbara, if you want to go or if you want me to answer. Okay. So the way that I look at this is because we are teeming with life, it gives us the opportunity to understand that we are part of that life. They are part of us. The other thing is I have an entire chapter that's dedicated to what I call the ascension of the soul. And when you look at that chart, you're going to be able to see where, we may go over here to become a human. We may go over here then to become an extraterrestrial, but we're all coming from that same consciousness. And it's important for us to understand that right now we are having the human experience. Our last lifetime, we may have been having an Arcturian experience. Again, everything is for the growth and the edification of the soul. And so for me, when we talk about this universe teeming with life, as we anchor in who we are as a human, it allows us to expand up. I always say you have to ascend before you can ascend. And part of that ascension process is connecting in to the multidimensionality reality that we are just one species in the entire universe, and there is life everywhere.
Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, look, I'm excited about disclosure. Disclosure is just exponential. I don't know if you've both been watching what's been happening through Ross Coulthard, who's the Aussie. He's an Aussie. I love saying that. He was one of those 60 Minutes reporters, which honestly, back in the day when he was on 60 Minutes, would be someone who would scoff at this conversation and make you sound like you're an idiot or stupid. And now he's at the forefront of disclosure, it coming out within the mainstream world. When I say mainstream, he's on a news program and he's got, a program talking about not just lights in the sky and alien bases, military bases, but he's talking about consciousness and he's talking about telepathy and he's talking about astral travel. And this is on a news program. Like a news program is talking about this. Isn't that amazing? Don't you think
I
that's
love
amazing?
it. I love it because now that this is starting to happen, the extraterrestrial disclosure, that can just be one step into all the other types of disclosure that we have going on. I think they have held the lid on this so tightly because they know once that can of worms opens, it's not just going to be about our galactic families and the connection that we hold. It's going to be so much more.
Yeah. And I've also, during COVID, I was watching a group of young men called Yes Theory, and they would go around the world and explore different aspects, like different countries. And, they got into the Wim Hof method, and it was more on a mainstream level of adventure and excitement and different things to do. And then they totally got into the UFO thing, and now they're exploring that exponentially. They've got millions of followers. Another young man who's connected to them is called Jess Michaels. Jesse Michaels, and he's got a great podcast, and he's exploring it in that sort of 20 to 30 generation. And it's just exploding across our media systems and across the world. It's exploding, and it's very exciting. So disclosure is around the corner, don't you think, Barbara?
Oh, yes, it's coming out more and more all the time. And I'm very pleased that it's hitting the mainstream.
Yeah.
So there are loads of us who've been involved in this for,
Years.
decades now. The UFO community and the conferences that have been held with that, and many different speakers. But still, it's sort of a select community within the larger community. So
Right.
because of the congressional hearings, all of this is coming out more in the mainstream. So people are getting kind of accustomed slowly, I think, to the fact that there are these vehicles, these UFOs, UAPs, from other planets and other civilizations. And I think that it's very good that it's sort of creeping out rather slowly, but that it is creeping out into the mainstream, so
Absolutely.
that and young people, I hear, young people are just so much more open to all of this. They're already thinking about the whole universe,
Mm-hmm.
and other planets, and I think at a very young age, and that even visits from other beings from those other places is not so unusual to them. It's sort of seeping in to the culture, which I think is very, very good. And I think there will be more public awareness of consciousness from these other beings from space. And so the more that people are sort of comfortable with that whole idea, the more that we can have some really benevolent connections with those beings, more as a whole culture.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Beautiful.
Always looking for indications of some of the world leaders, to share acknowledgement of that. I don't think that I've really noticed that any of them have. Maybe they haven't. I haven't noticed it, but I'm always looking for that. What about our political leaders?
Yeah.
How are they? What do they personally think about all this? What do they? Are they sharing anything about this? Don't really see much indication of that.
Well, I have to say, the Joe Rogan show. There's another podcast called the Telepathy Tapes, which is a couple of wonderful women interviewing mothers and children that are on the spectrum that are nonverbal, and all the kids are speaking telepathically to each other. They're all hyper intelligent, although you might not see that because they're nonverbal. And so Joe Rogan, who speaks to millions of people, mentions the Telepathy Tapes, which I saw. So I reached out to Kai Dickens, and she was going to come on the show, and then it exploded, and now she's too busy to come on my show because all the big ones are coming on the show. Oops, did I disappear? And but maybe she'll come on the show when it calms down. But what is beautiful about that is that conversation has exploded, like telepathy. They're talking. Tucker Carlson, who talks about news and corruption mostly, he mentioned it on his show. He's talking about telepathy. So here we are with these massive programs talking about UFOs and telepathy and consciousness. It's very cool. It's very, very cool.
Ross Coulthart seems to be popping up, at least on my cell phone.
Yeah.
I see, one wonderful interview that he has done after the other. And I am really surprised to hear that he did not have any openness to this until fairly recently. Now he's doing a big service.
He's doing a huge, I think that initially he was well and truly entrenched in that mainstream media mind, but he had questions that most of his colleagues did not want to entertain. And I think that when those questions got bigger and bigger and bigger, he had to move away from that 60 minutes, energy into his own exploration and investigation. And I would love to get him on the show to ask him how this all came out. But I don't know how that turned into now being on News Nation with his own show and speaking to millions of people. So I don't know how the questions turned into like him leading the way with disclosure. But I have to say, your new president or old president, coming back president, returning president, I saw him on Rogan, and he said that everyone asks him about this subject, to open the files. And he said, personally, I'm not interested in it, but everyone asks me about it. So he said, that's the first thing I'm going to do when I get in, is open those files, and more disclosure will come out. So that will be interesting. So there's a politician, even though he's not interested in it, he's going to go down that route. So that's interesting.
Oh, good. I hope so.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's true.
But during those congressional hearings with the Navy, the Ryan Graves, and all those people, the people coming out, the politicians that were firing questions at them, they seemed really interested in them. A lot of them were younger, but they seemed genuinely fascinated about this subject and amazed that they were in politics and that they had never heard that the government was holding back information. And so, there's a lot of passionate people in politics that are ready for this information to come out.
Yeah, it's coming along. I think a lot is opening up now with the politicians and with the public. So I think very good.
So what does Susan say? You might want to interview my friend who was episode 5 of the telepathy tape. Yeah, I'd love to, Susan. I've actually got a lot of friends in Sydney. Kai Dickens and the telepathy tape is amazing. It's on YouTube, episode 10. I've got a lot of friends in Sydney who have kids on the spectrum, a lot. And I had a client many years ago. He was 9. I think he's about 17 now, who was a nonverbal, but he was just the most enlightened, amazing child. And I was talking to him telepathically, and his mother was like he was 9, for 7 years to make this kid talk. And I said, he's never going to talk. He's not here to talk. He's here to teach you about telepathy and the powers of your mind. And I spoke to her the other day and I said, is he speaking yet? She said, no, he can say a few words, but it's hard to wrap our head around a new way of communicating when you're so used to this verbal communication. Right. And so for her and many of the other mothers that have these nonverbal kids, they just really have to shift the way they communicate with their children because, it's interesting.
Isn't it?
Mothers are really doing well with that.
Yeah.
Some are. Apparently, we all have telepathic ability. We just don't,
we don't realize it.
It's an unused function.
Yeah.
But apparently we all do have it. And these autistic children are really showing us the way.
Yeah. Sheila, what did you want to say, darling one?
I was just going to say, isn't it interesting how in our dream time, whether it's dream time or not, but in our dream time, when we communicate, we always do it telepathically, or at least I do. I'm not sitting there having verbal conversations with people and their mouths are not sitting there moving. It's more of a telepathic exchange of information. You just know what they're saying. You know what they're thinking. You know what the actions are, and you just move ahead. Is that not your all's dreams? Maybe we have different kinds of dreams. I don't know.
It's interesting. I think that in dreams, we don't have mouths and ears, mouths to speak and ears to hear, although we are still speaking and hearing in the way that we're familiar with, but we are all communicating telepathically, but we think we're not because we're used to this way of but we don't have a voice box and a cochlea to hear. Like we don't have that physical apparatus when we're in our dream state or astral state. So it's interesting, isn't it? We're all doing it.
It is.
I mean, it's said in the Seth books, channeled books in the 60s. Seth said through Jane Roberts, the collective or the entity who called himself Seth, that humans are already all communicating telepathically all the time. You couldn't drive on your roads if you were not. And I remember thinking, wow, thinking about when you drive, you often know what people are going to do. And maybe if we weren't all at a subconscious level, communicating telepathically, we couldn't drive on our roads. There would just be too much chaos. But there is a communication that's happening as we're speeding and changing lane. Like, it's happening, but we're not consciously aware of it so much, but it's going on. Yeah. Which is interesting, isn't it? Yeah. What is good point, Sheila? What does Penny say here? I use telepathy in my dreams too, all the time. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And Vladdy says he does too. What does Penny say here? Susan Miller has been doing amazing work in the area of telepathy. She would be another good one for the show. I'm sure she would. Leah says driving is a trigger for me. Yeah, so yeah, the telepathy tapes. I mean, even though she didn't come on my show, she cancelled. I'm still excited that this conversation has become so big that she can't come on the show because she's being, the Tucker Carlsons and the Joe Rogans are asking her to come on the show. So on their shows, which are reaching millions of people. All right, we've got 5 minutes left. I said to the ladies, what's the message you want to get across for this show? And they both said, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book. A lot of people,
that was a joke. No, it's not. I mean, we do want you to buy the book.
No, it's not really buy the book. But a lot of people say, this show is just about selling books. I mean, seriously, what's the book? A few bucks. It's not like you're going to make people rich buying a book. But what is the message that the book is giving people? And if people maybe want to buy the book for somebody else that's just starting to explore this information, what is the message of the book that is really going to give people?
Well, from my perspective, I believe that the book is really describing our multidimensional nature, whether it's the micro or the macro. It's all about the multidimensional nature of humans and the fact that we are so much more than we have been told that we are. We're capable of more. And that honestly, at the end of the day, we are eternal beings that will change forms and continue throughout eternity in one form or another. And so I hope for those people that buy the book, you enjoy that multidimensional aspect.
Oh, beautiful. And Barbara, what would you like to say?
It's the whole book is a message of hope. In other words, we are living in so much of an enormous perspective that Sheila is talking about. We are multidimensional. So people who get really, really tied up in all kinds of little concerns, noogie-googies, as I call them, and they can be very, very bothersome, but really the picture of who they are is so much bigger. And that, again, I think is a message of hope. And I would like to say, too, that in this book, Cosmic Convergence, Sheila has done a beautiful job of really making it very clear about all these things that we have been talking about and all the different aspects of who we are and the aspects, different forms of walk-ins that come in exchange with certain people. It's just a really in-depth and I think very enjoyable and clear description of all of these things that are very helpful for us to know about.
Yeah. Oh, ladies, well, you're both absolutely amazing human beings or cosmic beings or galactic beings here on Earth. I want to thank you so much for all the work that you've done in the world and for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us today. It's been an absolute honor and a blessing to have you both on the show. And I've had Sheila on the show many times, of course, and Barbara was booked in a few times, but things went haywire. So I've never actually had Barbara on the show to speak about her work. So we'll get that happening this year, Barbara, hopefully. We'll get in, we can share more of your case studies and the work that you're doing. But thank you again. Thank you so much for being on the show. And just remind people about where to find you and your networks and everything.
Yes. Well, I have a website, which is barbaralamregression.com. barbaralamregression.com, and people can email me through that website. There's a section where you can write in, and it will get forwarded to my email, and I will get back to you. And there are some podcasts on that broadcast too, on that website. I also have a YouTube channel, which has very interesting discussions about lots of unusual things. And that channel is Barbara Lamb ET Contacts.
Fabulous.
Barbara Lamb.
Beautiful. And Sheila obviously is the Cosmic Awakening Network. No, hang on, I've got that wrong.
ConsciousAwakeningNetwork.org, or you can go directly to my site at SheilaSeppi.com.
Beautiful. Thanks again, everyone. We've run out of
Thank
time.
you.
Big love to all of you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.